What's happening? Question for you fine folks at home, driving in your cars and doing what you do. What do you do when you come up for topics or try to think of topics for social media and your platforms? Right here, right now on Air Brands Live.
You're now tuned in to the On Air Brands podcast.
It's true. What's happening, folks?
So what you meant to say was, do you struggle to come up with topics?
That's what I do.
For your social media content. We're going to riff on that and more on today's
There you
episode.
go. See, he had it. You should have done the intro, my friend.
Wow.
Do you
What's going
struggle with speaking about your intros?
Folks, the complete meta behind the curtain here. Todd gave us that topic really quickly, 30 seconds less, actually 3 seconds before we went live. So thank you for that, Todd.
Well, don't we pay him for that? Isn't that part of his job?
That's
He's
true.
Very true. Very, very true.
It's repeat guest, ladies and gentlemen. Todd Giannatasio is right there to join us again. He's our man.
Marketing
Marketing
friend.
friend.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me back. Always a blast to be on the show, especially talking topics and riffing. And this is good. This is a good follow-up to our in-person conversation last week, Josh, where you were trying to tell Eric and myself that I forget what it was that we needed, but you were like, oh yeah, I just got to memorize this first before we do it. No. There's no memorizing. It's all a riff, guys.
True.
Like it's a riff.
I think riffing, let's talk about this because what you guys gave me the task of was we're going to be coming to the table with our 4 C's video training product.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, here's an outline that I gave you to record, to talk to the people who are going to or who have purchased it. And I looked at it and it was literally 2 to 3 minutes of dialogue. And I said, during our meeting, you said, did you record it yet? And I said, no, I still have to memorize it. And you said, come on, why don't you just riff on it? And it's possible. So like Lisa said, what does it mean to riff? What are we talking about here?
I think, riffing to me is like the key behind modern day content creation, right? And also, let's loop in a great way to practice riffing is by being a guest on podcasts, right? Where there's a host, who can kind of control the dialogue a little bit and steer you in a direction. And the more you do it, in a row, the better. Now, is there a place, guys, where you could maybe do 1, 2, 3, let's say 3 shows in one day where you could be a guest and really practice your riffing?
He's so good.
Oh my
Does anyone know where we could do something like
He's
that?
so good.
You asked if there's a place where an entrepreneur can get as a guest on 3 top shows relevant to their industry in one day.
In one day.
And in between those recordings, you're asking, can they also experience a masterclass education, lots of networking, and a keynote?
I mean, something that amazing. Could it possibly exist?
It sounds familiar. It does sound like it's happened a few times at least. But yeah.
I think everybody, if that sounds intriguing to you and you want to practice your riffing so that it stays on dialogue and relevant to your brand, podmax.co is where you go and register to get into this event where you will learn from the masters of riffing, Josh and Eric.
Wow.
On how you can understand, clarify your message so it's going to be relevant to your audience, right? Connecting with your audience. And then how do you be a great guest on shows so that you can do that? I just saw it pop up like 3 times in the comments. Oh, because we have 3 channels going. Thanks. That's behind the curtains, guys. So check the comments for the link there. But riffing really is, I think, the modern day content creation gold, because there are too many people out there in this one chapter ahead expertise type of thing, right? Like, oh, I learned something quickly. Now I'm going to turn this into, I'm going to build a business on it. And that's not what real experts are. Real experts are able to come to the table, and as long as it's a topic relevant to what they do on a regular basis, they should be able to riff on those topics easily, right? And so when you want to really kind of separate yourself, I think being able to have those genuine conversations around a specific topic, that shows off your expertise. It comes off authentically, and that's the kind of thing that's really resonates with an audience when you want to get them in. And so when you're able to come together like we are today and just riff on a topic like content creation, brainstorming topics, like that's where it really gets to show off, like what do they call it? The unconscious competence that you have as an entrepreneur, as a subject matter expert, and all that kind of stuff, and really put it on the table to, attract people, dog whistle copy calling out of your audience and those kind of things. And that's, to me, what riffing is. What do you guys think? What's your take? What's riffing to you?
Well, I never realized how much I love the word and the concept of riffing, not only in like an atmosphere like this, where you're just off. It's almost like improv, right? There's a similar thing to that. And I love looking at it from the big picture of business growth and content creation from the entrepreneur, because it's so necessary, even when you are coming up with blog post articles or things to write in your email or social media posts. It starts, if not ends, with a riff, right? You get an idea, a topic, a thought, a theme, and I open up my Evernote app and I just start literally riffing in writing, and then do a good draft, and then maybe make some tweaks, and then get it out there on some level. So is not the antithesis, boy, was I waiting weeks to use that word, is not the antithesis of riff perfection?
Ooh, yes. I think so. Or I would say, they often say that perfectionism is procrastination. Right. You're holding yourself back from taking action because you want it to be perfect. And I think riffing is the solution to that problem.
Riffing is exercise to me. It's going to the gym and doing my reps, because if you've noticed, anyone, whether it's working out or doing whatever, yoga or some form that needs consistent, repetition and habits, the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the more you do it, the stronger it gets. Same thing with riffing, which basically it's also being spontaneous and being able to jump in confidently and not really being afraid to make mistakes, or not being afraid what other people think, because what you're saying is true, or you believe it to be true, and it's helping people, and you're an expert in whatever it is you're talking about, hopefully. Those things I've noticed over time, that the confidence level only comes from practice, and it also comes from repetition and consistency. And basically, if you want to call it riffing, it's riffing. I thought, Josh, you were going to go down the road of coming from the acting world, we riff, which is improv, basically getting on stage and right off the top of your head, coming up with topics and jokes and all sorts of things that basically entertain people, right? This is what we were just calling, before the mics and the cameras turned on, edutainment. Mm-hmm. We try our best to package our content as edutainment.
So if you are a podcast host, right, you are encouraging your guest to riff, right? That using the riff, right?
That's how I usually run my shows, is like that, where I tell them before we get on, I say, hey, here's, your area of expertise is podcasting is one of my recent guests. And so we're going to talk about, how do you come up with podcast ideas? How do you get guests? How do you structure your shows? How do you wrap your shows? How do you monetize? How do you promote the show? All topics you're familiar with, you live and breathe it every day. But it's really going to be a guided conversation, and let's just chop it up and let's riff on that stuff. And, when you have the right people talking about it, it's easy for them to just come off the top and have those conversations in a way that is valuable, but also because it isn't memorized and scripted, it's more entertaining and conversational, like Eric was saying.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Riffing is off script.
Yeah.
Off script.
So this is there's a question mark at the end of this. This is a skill, riffing, that people could enhance and improve at.
I think it's similar, like what Eric was saying, in the exercise. analogy, right? Like riffing is something that you should do and practice and you will get better at. So I would say that is definitely a skill. And like any skill, like when you first start, you're going to suck, and you keep riffing, you keep practicing, you keep exercising, and eventually you will suck so little, you'll actually be pretty good. Right.
I love that. Yeah.
What's cool about that analogy though is the gym. So you can walk into the gym with no plan in mind. You're just like, I'm here, I won. But if you go in with a plan, like an actual structure to what you're going to do and maximize the time that you're spending there, then you get a better outcome from it, because now you're targeting certain muscle areas and groups, and you know, you're each and every day honing and growing certain muscles. And the same thing goes with riffing. Yes, you can riff, but if you go in with bullet points and a structure and a framework in your mind, at the very least, it's gonna come off as like I said, entertainment or content that's super valuable to someone, because you're riffing, but you're not going off on tangents and blah 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 blah, and like, you what the hell are you talking about now? You know, so it's I think it's definitely a good practice.
Well, I think the way we approach so much of the Pod Max event in between the recordings, when we engage all of the attendees, the guests and the hosts, isn't that what we're doing? Aren't we riffing with a plan and an agenda, right? There's an improv there. We're riffing. We're asking them how their interviews went, how they're feeling, what they're looking for, what they're about, what they're doing. That's all a riff. But like you said, Eric, it's defined for the outcome.
Yeah, and it keeps the juices flowing, right? Like, you know, you see basketball players, when they get off the court, they hop onto the bike for a little bit just to keep their legs moving and stay warm. I think this is kind of the similar concept, right? That you go into your show, you're being interviewed or you're doing the interviewing, you get off, you just hop on the bike and you jump into this community conversation to keep the juices flowing and hear what everyone else is doing. And also, you know, it takes you out of the silo too, where especially with, you know, Josh and Eric kind of throwing the ball around to everyone and keeping the conversations. Hey, how was your interview? What'd you guys talk about? What was this? I think it also gets everybody else excited for each other and maybe gives some ideas, spark some ideas for the next conversations and interviews that happen in the next podcast session.
You know what else this does is, and I think podcast guests can relate. If you've ever been on the guest side of it, at least multiple times, you might find yourself in this situation. You're answering a question, you're in mid-thought, you're talking, and then you sort of lose your train of thought. You then forget really what you're talking about, what question you're answering, what you've been saying. It doesn't make any more sense, but you know the words still need to come out. So you just start just creating more sentences and hope you're going to find a suitable pull-off ending that's like, you know what, I'm just going to pull off to the side of the road here and go from there. I think the last 25% of it.
I would say that happens to me at least once every time I'm in a conversation, and I think you just had a good little analogy. You are the segue king, Josh, and you just said, let me pull off to the side of the road. I think let's give some practical tips for people who do find themselves like, oh shit, how did I even get down this road of? And you know, you're kind of in the back of your head thinking, all right, well, I think a couple phrases that can be used. I think what you just said, Josh, there was like, you can get to a point and say like, all right, let me pull this car over and let's regroup on the conversation and just say it out loud and circle back to whatever that original topic was. I think I've heard a lot of people recently saying like, all right, I'm going to land the plane now and bring it back. Right. And you can also say, you know, that you get to a point and you say, all right, let me circle back to your original topic, or here. All right, now I'll tie this in to answer your question more concisely. You know, I'll say that a lot worse. And sometimes that's the riff. And then I'm like, okay, now that I riffed, I have a more concise thought. So there was your 3-minute riff. Now let me tie that in a bow and I'll re-say that for you in 30 seconds so that we can use that as a soundbite on social, right?
That's skill right there.
It is a skill. It's a skill, especially for the podcast host, because they have to be at their A game when interviewing you, because they have to listen with the intent of helping you with your message, because a lot of people do come in. I interviewed Rod Khleif. Those in the real estate investing community know he's huge. He's massive. He's like Tony Robbins. And he he's the tangent king, and he kept going off in all these different branches. And if it wasn't for Josh McCallan, my co-host on that show, and myself, we had to keep bringing him back because he would ask us. He's like, "Oh, what the hell was I talking about?" And we're like, "Oh, you were talking about when you took down that hotel and you did it. Oh, yeah. Thank you." And then he'll just go off on another tangent in 2 seconds. But the thing is, if you have someone with you in the room that can guide the conversation so that you stay on point and you don't go off the rails, then it's very helpful. And that's what we do. I mean, at PodMax all day long, the people that are in the room, the podcasters themselves are all pros. They've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews, so they know how to guide the conversation, make sure that, like, because I always like in this one, and Lisa likes this analogy as well, is just get in the car. Get in the passenger seat and we'll drive. We're going to set the GPS. And when we get there, we'll know it. That's when we land the plane. Oh, look, we're here. How do we get here? Don't you love that when that happens? You're driving and then you're like just doing your thing, listening to podcasts or books and talking. And then you're like, how the hell did I get home? That's like the podcast. The podcast is over. Like, crap. Oh, it's done. I wanted to keep going. Let's keep driving.
And luckily, when you're at PodMax, you still got 2 more after that.
That's very true. Or you
So
can
if you get lost, you can still regroup.
Yeah.
But if you're the guest, okay, so what I'm thinking is what this is in my mind triggering is being a guest at a cocktail party where you're put in a room and you have to kind of figure out and you have to riff, right? You have to kind of in your mind know those key points, and you have to engage with people and create a conversation and in turn network. And so you're going to riff, you're going to just kind of wing it. If you are let's say for PodMax, developing a skill for the guests, what do we tell them to kind of think about when they riff? Is it, key points in their business? Is it, what do we tell them? How can they be trained to start, practicing riffing?
Yeah. Their story is the number one thing that we always highlight. We say, okay, yeah, you could talk about your business and what you do all day. I don't think that's necessarily going to be a hook for people when they turn that episode on. They want to hear human stories that they can relate to right away. So if you can establish that within the first few minutes before they turn it off or go on to the next show or YouTube channel, you want to be able to have them be relatable, right? And then start to tease out the things that they're going to offer in this episode. Like, so because when my team and I were able to take down 336 units, and people are like, oh crap, they did that. Yeah, I'll talk about that. Or, hey, and we have a client where we turned their business around through Facebook marketing, and turned them into a 7-figure business. Like people are like, ooh, crap, how did he do that? So you want to start your story right off the bat, and then a teaser somehow in there in the beginning, and then also, start priming the pump for business, basically, because that is the opportunity for each and every one of us as you get on a show. It's like, how do you generate more business? Well, you generate interest in your story and what you do.
And the other idea is to not be so rigid. I think it's important for the guest to know that there's a sense of self-confidence and knowledge in their story and message, and they got it down. And wherever the host leads them, it'll be great. And they're capable of doing this. So the more you could confidently relax into the role that you're playing now as the guest, the better it'll be. Just knowing, you know what, I'm here for the ride. I'll go wherever you take me. And that's it. The other thing that we're always quick to point out during the PodMax experience, which I say that because it's more than just that one full day event where you record as a guest on multiple top shows in your industry. Prior to that event, a few days prior, we work with you in small groups and one-on-one to help you first identify, practice, and rehearse and communicate that message over and over to build your confidence, build your master of the mic, which will happen in a few days at the event. One of the things we always tell them is, yes, we're going to help you really identify so tell us about yourself. introduction, 60 to 90 seconds out of the gate. How you open the show is really everything, right? It establishes the energy and the foundation for who you are and hooks the listener into why they should continue to listen. One of the things we always further teach is once you get really clear on your message and your story and your foundation, yeah, you're going to use that over and over again, but start collecting other stories through experience on your day-to-day. Meaning, once you really hone in on who you are, why you are, and how you are, your story and message, now so many little things are going to tie into that. You're going about your day and you're on the supermarket checkout line. Something is going to trigger that says, oh, wow. Oh, this ties into my story or message. Now I can use this as further sound bites to back up who I am and what I stand for. And the more you're in tune with that, just like whenever you're in the market for a Tesla, then all of a sudden, all you see are Teslas. It's the same exact thing. Once you know your story and message and have that over and over in your mind, these little seemingly unrelated stories are going to play a definitive part to your overall goal, which is going to help your riff.
Yep. And yeah, to get scientific, that's, that's your reticular activating system, right? Like when your RAS. So once you have these things in your mind, your subconscious is on the lookout for them. So once you have that kind of overview and direction of the kind of things you're going to want to be riffing on, like Josh said, your subconscious is going to catch these stories throughout the day, every day. And I think when it comes to the exercising piece of it, that's what's great about social media, is using social media as a way to riff. Because if you're just posting organically on any channel, it comes and goes in about a day, right? And so when you get ideas, like I'm the same way, Josh, I keep an Evernote running list. I keep Trello cards of stuff I start working on. But also what I do is if I feel like there's a topic I might want to riff on, I tweet it out. And actually, if you go to Instagram, if you go to my Instagram today, it's at Growth Suite, SUITE. It's exactly kind of the process I use of riffing and then polishing the riff and then maybe turning it into something. And so if there's a topic or a seed of an idea, I'll tweet it out almost just as a reminder to myself, like go through your Twitter feed at some point and pick topics. And so a couple days ago or weeks ago, I tweeted out, stop pitching, start connecting. And that's it. That's the tweet. And there's not really much to it, but to me, it was an idea like this might be something I want to riff on later. So I tweeted it out. This morning, I'm trying to get into the habit of posting on Instagram on a daily basis when I have every morning when I have my coffee. I'm stacking my habits here, have my coffee, post on Instagram, and share it to Facebook. So what I did was I open up Twitter, go to my profile, see the topics like, oh, I wanted to riff on that. Stop pitching, start connecting. And I take a screenshot, crop it so it's just the message and profile like the kids do on Instagram these days. And then I head over Instagram. I use that screenshot as the image. And then I just kind of riffed. I took 5 minutes while I was drinking coffee and I riffed on the idea of stop pitching, start connecting. And, fleshed it out a little bit. It was a tweet. It turned into an Instagram post. I posted on Instagram. Now, after I riffed it out a little bit more, and then I was like, you know what? I think I want to send this as an email to all my subscribers. So I pop open ActiveCampaign. I copy what was the Instagram post that came from the tweet. I kind of, Instagram was like, a longer riff than Twitter, but still, the context of it is less formalized or polished as an email might be. And so in the email, now I wrote out another extra sentence or two to add more context to it, which then ended up going back in and I edited my Instagram post and fleshed it out using that. But when I'm coming up with these ideas, I'm keeping an Evernote list. If it's something I start working on in more longer form, I might make a Trello card for it. But I'm tweeting out these little seeds of ideas that I want to riff on. And then when I'm in need of topics, and I also don't want to take a picture at 6 a.m. to post on Instagram, I can easily head over to Twitter, find my idea, screenshot as the image, riff on it in Instagram, share that to Facebook, turn it into an email. And these little seeds of ideas turn into riffs, which turn into more polished messages. And then that's the power of like using social as the exercise of riffing and testing out topics. And it's a live feedback loop, right? And so as people like, comment, share, or don't, you start to see the people who I'm connected with, what's resonating with them. And then when you get something that gets some traction, assuming this is for business accounts. So now you can say, all right, I want this is something that has legs. It's got some social proof on it. People responded to it. People replied to my email. It's something I want to start expanding on and reach more people. Well, now you can put a couple dollars behind it and turn it into an ad campaign to reach people beyond your existing connections, right? And so that's where you can really turn, like, when you get this idea of riffing as an exercise, your reticular activating system turns on, you're finding all these stories, you're tweeting out these seeds of ideas, which turn into social, turns into email, turns into ad campaigns. And all of a sudden there's 1 million people following you and you're Gary Vaynerchuk on YouTube, right? And that's all that happened, right?
It always comes down to Gary, right?
And so,
it's that easy, right?
Yeah, it's that easy.
But it really is, actually.
Yeah.
That's
and really, if you think back to his early days, really all you need to do is drink a ton of wine and post videos on YouTube and you
become the expert. But Todd, to your point, there's the riffing in the repetition, right? So I'm riffing right now because I forgot my train of thought. But the thing
let's
is,
land this plane.
What you reminded me though of is, because I was going to say something to that, but then I'm going back to my earlier thought when you were talking, is that exactly what happened with the 4 C's. So I want to go back to what happened in a conversation I was having live on a show during the beginning of the pandemic, where I was just talking about creating content, doing more of it, being more consistent with Josh and the team and everybody on a show. And I started teasing out something about, having clarity in your message and building a community and collaborating. And then Josh was like, dude, that's really brilliant. Maybe we should start building off of that. It's really cool. So we start riffing on it, and we kept fine tuning it and creating something where it was just a conversation because through a riff, and now has become a product, right? That you are helping us to develop and put it out there for people so that they can now leverage this product and do what we're doing. So it's kind of cool how if you iterate and you actually have a platform, if you don't have a platform like your own podcast or a regular guest, like many of us here on this show, where you can iterate and test drive it. Oh, now I'm remembering what I was going to say. It's basically free crowdsourcing market research.
Yep.
When I was in the corporate world, it would cost us tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to do market research, get people in the room and get their ideas and then capture them and then riff and iterate on what the heck we created and see if we can make it better. We're doing that live on social through you, viewers, listeners, people who are tuning in every single week to what we do. We're basically having you as our crowdsourcing marketing research team, which is great. Thank you very much. But then also it helps to build your own products. As I was mentioning earlier, we have the 4 C's, which is a free download. Is that correct, Todd?
Yeah. It's up if people want to check it out. So really, the hook for you guys, if you want to learn how to get the attention and interest of your target audience and get them to care about what you're saying, even if you've never been a podcast guest before, then you head over to podmax.co/masterclass. You can get that 4 C's masterclass for free right now.
What was that? podmax.co/masterclass?
That's right. podmax.co/masterclass.
You act now. You get a set of steak knives. Jake's going to put that in the comments for you. But yeah, it's really cool because that is something that we honed and crafted over time. If anybody wanted to go back and see how it basically came to fruition, it's really cool to see things from its inception, just a concept and an idea and a riff, to now something that, boom, people can download and use it, and hopefully it changes your life.
Yeah.
I don't know if this veers us too far off the road, but Todd, you said something a little earlier about taking your coffee drinking habits and then segueing them to posting on Instagram. And the quote you said was that really what you're doing now is stacking your habits.
Yep.
What does that intriguing phrase mean?
So it's it's part of the idea that you want to create what are your goals and outcomes that you want to create in your world and in your life. And those things come from doing work consistently, like riffing, right? If you want to get good at creating content, coming up with ideas and riffing on topics in a valuable edutainment type of way, you need to be practicing it consistently. And so how do you inject these new habits into your life? And one of the quote easier ways to do it is by habit stacking. So what's an existing habit that you have already that you can tie to? So when you do that thing, you also do your new habit, right? So now every morning I pour my coffee, I sit at the table, and for I have my running list of topics, and I spend 5 to 10 minutes posting something on social. So when you want to get a new habit going, like practicing your riffing and getting on social more, you tie it to something you're doing already.
So it's like a trigger. You know, if you do this, you do this.
Yep.
And then you can build it's like building blocks.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Which is actually brilliant because, it's a prompt, and it's a mental prompt.
Yeah. It's a cue. And then,
cue. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and like our good friend Jerry Seinfeld, who I just got his book, which stemmed from our conversation on riffing last week, was his new book came up, and so I ordered it, and most of the book is the fact that ever since he started in 1970 or whatever, he's written a joke every single day, up until now, and is still doing it. And he writes them in these yellow legal pads. And the book, which unfortunately is in another room, I can't show it, but it's very thick and it's broken down by decade. And it's just literally, they're most of them are half a page long jokes. And I'm laughing out loud to myself as I'm reading through it. But the first 2 or 3 pages of the book is like a little introduction. And it really like almost gave me chills reading it, because he talks about how he got started in comedy was that he saw a stand-up comic for the first time, and it just grabbed him right away. And he said, how do I get into this world where my job is to make people laugh? I don't even care. I don't even have to be that funny. I just have to be funny enough to cover my rent and buy a jar of peanut butter and a loaf of bread every week so that I can eat. And if that's all I get to in my career, I will be the happiest man alive. And it was because he just loved the process of writing jokes, telling jokes, and mastering his craft. There was, he wasn't looking grandiose over in the next 50 years, I'm going to be the highest paid comedian, or, wherever he ranks on there. I'm sure he is.
Yes.
But it was, how do I just stay consistent and master this craft and just enjoy the process and the continuous, crossing the X on the calendar every day that you write a joke and never breaking the chain, right? And that's the consistency that goes with exercising, with writing jokes, with coming up and creating content online. And it's part of our, a friend of the family, an actual friend of the family, Hal Elrod. For the record, I don't believe Josh or Eric, I certainly not myself, are friends with Jerry Seinfeld.
I was going to ask that. Like,
there's probably 1 degree of separation there somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I'm sure. But but actual friend of PodMax, Hal Elrod, also talks about that a lot.
The reason I pulled it up, I didn't mean to distract you, but what you're basically talking about, and he's already put it in the miracle equation, is what Jerry did was he had unwavering faith in what he was doing, and continued with that purpose to just make people laugh. And then he put in an extraordinary effort, which created a miracle, which is everything Seinfeld has created and changed the freaking world. But yeah, I'm sure he didn't go in with that intention, like, I'm going to change the world. It's like, I'm sure, that is simply what it is. And thanks for sharing that, dude. Now I got to buy the book. Josh knows I was on the fence about it.
No, you were almost
Amazon.
I was a little insulted.
I'm a big Jerry Seinfeld fan too. But last time when we were talking about the book, Todd and I were talking about what the book is and represents, and it's these great collection. It's a full collection of his jokes.
Eric was offended.
He was offended.
I was like, am I going to get another one of these? Like, come on. Like, this book here from Tim.
Another one of.
Yeah. There you go. It's the booster seat for your laptop.
Exactly.
Same with me.
Basically, the work is done. These are all just podcast episodes and squished into a 8,000 page book. But then Seinfeld did the same thing. He was like, I have all this content.
Don't hate the player.
I'm going to buy it.
Repurposers too.
Something tells me it was his agent's idea, but
it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I'm going to do it.
I know our masterful tech producer here, Jacob, says he has a question. What's going on, Jacob?
Whoa,
there he is. Welcome to the scene.
How dare you?
How do I sound?
It's awesome,
It
man.
does
Wow,
sound
you
good.
sound pro. Where'd you get that mic?
I don't know. There's a studio in the other room, and I raided them this morning.
He
and,
literally
and
grabbed it. Yeah.
I plugged it in, and it works. So my question here is back.
Yes,
back
caller,
to
you have a question.
Baba Booey.
Long time
Booey.
listener.
Baba Booey.
Jamie. It's
Yeah.
I'm Jamie.
Young
It's
Jamie.
Jamie from Wisconsin.
It's
Go
all
ahead,
right.
Jamie. Jamie, you're on the air.
So essentially, being someone who's not that good at riffing the way you guys naturally are, like you hop on live, like Eric this morning, for example, before we go live here, he goes live on his Facebook or wherever he goes live. For example, after our PodMax events, I go live and do our sign off. But before that, like you said, Josh, the antithesis of riffing
Thank you.
is perfection. So I'm in my head saying, what am I gonna say? How am I gonna say it? In what order am I gonna say it? So and that's a lot, kind of why I like to wait for you guys to leave, because I'm all in my own head. I'm planning it all out, and I worry about what if I stumble over my words? What if I hit a wall and I get stuck and don't know what to say? So how do you guys kind of combat that and overcome that when you're getting ready to go live, outside of being a guest on a show, just in the live format?
I got the one answer for you. I don't know if it's gonna be one word. It's two. Okay, it's three. Push the button.
Yep.
All you got to do is hit the red button, bro. Just go live.
And speak
And-
from here. Just
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I'll
Just
tell
speak.
I'll tell you the missing pieces that I add to that. Yeah, it eventually comes sooner than later. You got to push that button. But prior to that, and I think Eric mentioned this earlier, I, at least in my head, maybe on paper, but at least in my head, I give a minute or two of thought of, okay, what's the purpose of this? What's the what's the real reason I'm doing this? What's the 1, 2, or 3 points I want to get out? And then connect those. And I might even, because of my acting and film days, I might even give a little dry run rehearsal. I might just, pretend and go, okay, hey guys, I'm here, I'm doing this, and just like go through it and say, okay, I want to touch that, I want to touch this. How am I going to end? What's the ending? So you have a beginning, maybe a middle, and an end, and then you just look to connect those dots.
But to Josh's point, outside of push the button, right? Because that is the result that's going. It's going to make it happen. It's going to force you. That's action. It's literally taking action. What Josh is talking about is literally just start with the end in mind. So before you hit record, what is the message that I want? What is the call to action? You don't want to just riff and offer zero value to your listeners. Right. You want to have something that you're giving them that they can take away and take action upon. So start with the end in mind, and like Josh said, then you could backfill into a middle and a beginning.
So let's use Jacob this as an example. After a PodMax event, like Jacob says, his now claim to fame is he goes live as he's wrapping up. So Jacob, all it takes is for you to gain such clarity on what is the real purpose or reason. What are you leaving them with? Is it a, hey, thanks for a fantastic day? Is it a, I want to give you a little bit of insight of what we just experienced? Is it that, hey, don't miss the next one? Is it a combination of all of those? So now you're like, okay, I want to let them know that our next one is coming. I'm full of gratitude for the growth that I feel and what we just experienced. And wow, we had a great day. Now you connect those dots, but the more clear you are on, okay, what is the main takeaway here that I'm saying?
I want to highlight though, Jake, and you probably already notice as Josh is, explaining this, you've already done this multiple times. When the last PodMax, when I watched you, and it's funny because I noticed you sort of quiet as we were all working after the event. Usually we're jumping around like monkeys because we're so excited and filled with adrenaline, but you were really sort of in thought. And then all of a sudden, like you picked up your phone and you started going. But I know you were already formulating everything we're talking about. You had the end in mind, and then the middle, and then the beginning. And you did such a good job. I was like, practically, me, in tears when you were walking out, because I was like, look, he's all grown up. He's all grown up. He's all grown up, and he's all grown up. Anybody know that?
I think
No.
I want to reiterate, Josh, what you're saying about clarity, and clarity starts with a C, which is one of the 4 C's in the free masterclass.
The first one, actually.
Yep, the first C. So if you're listening or watching this and you're wondering how to get better clarity, go to podmax.co/masterclass, get that free training, and you will learn about how to get this clarity that we're talking about. And I think, another thing that I like to think about when I'm about to go on a riff is when you sit down with somebody and they ask you a question, you just answer them, right? And so the camera becomes like a mental block and hurdle that makes us feel this hesitation. But if it were just a person there and said, Jake, how'd the day go at Podmax? And what's the next steps? You would tell them straightforward, right? It's not something hard to answer. And so
right. Yeah.
I think, when you know the question that you're answering, when you know the end, how you want to wrap it up, where you want to bring these people who are hearing the message, it can become natural. It's that mental block of the camera's on versus I'm sitting across the table from someone who just asked me a question.
Right. So I'm hearing a lot. It's knowing the end result and knowing the end game, what you're trying to achieve, and then kind of identifying the talking points, roughing out the points that you want to touch on, and then not worrying about the minutia and the adjectives you're going to use and the transitions that you're going to use. And cool. All right.
Yeah. Get all that noise out of your head and just focus on what you're delivering. Like literally a straight laser focus into that camera and that one person. Don't think about there are 10 people, 100 people listening to me. You're talking to one person. Yeah. Right. Makes it so much easier.
And the good news is in 1 month from today.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's right. 1 month from today.
Oh, you'll get to do it again.
Yes.
His sign off. December 4th is our next Podmax.
Love it. And we are ridiculously excited because funny, Todd's here too, because the man, the myth, the dude, Chris Do, who, if you haven't heard of him, you got to go just
his
look
content
on YouTube.
Is awesome, man. His
Off
content is
the
awesome.
Freaking charts, this guy. And he's available and ready and willing to share with our community all the stuff that he's learned over the course of decades in building a brand, having a personal brand, building an agency. But that, it's not specifically just building a creative agency. This is about business. This guy, he calls himself, he's a business Jedi, right?
That's what's great about his stuff is that although his skill set is the branding and creative side, he's not, and he does have great content on typography and design styles and blah, blah, blah. But it's the business of those things where he really brings it in. And I think, especially for that type of crowd who is oftentimes very hesitant to sell things or build a business, they're the creative type. And I think the way he's able to deliver how to build a business around that, which pertains to any kind of business that you have, but because he's able to deliver in such a great way for that audience, I think is a way that everyone can take advantage of the stuff that he's putting out. So check out his free content, and definitely I'm sure he's going to dive deep and help answer specific questions at Podmax. So if you don't have your ticket, definitely register.
Yeah, we're going to do an exercise with him that has never been done at any of our events before, where he's really specifically good at, like you said, Todd, getting you past the barriers of what your value is and how you can communicate that to the potential client. So a lot of us, myself included, often think, well, my product or my services or my time is worth this much. Well, as anyone who has insecurities or self-doubt, it's difficult to throw a number on stuff, and especially if it doesn't exist. Like you're creating something and you're throwing it out there and you're seeing who's going to kick tires or who's going to say yes. Well, Chris gets you to understand where you're coming from, how much value you truly do have, and standing your freaking ground. Like he is a beast when it comes to like, no, you are the man or the woman, and this is your product and it's worth this, and be ready for the rejection, or you're actually rejecting them. That's the kind of cool thing. He'll twist on it. Like he'll turn the coin and say, you're providing value to them. That was an aha moment to me when I got into real estate investing. Was I'm not asking someone for capital or money. I am sharing with them the opportunity to participate in my project. It's the same thing with any product. You're giving them value and offering them an opportunity to grow and to get better and to expand their business through whatever it is that you do. And he really, you know what he's more like? He's like a therapist. He's really like a guy that gets you on the couch and says, and you play it out. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to sort of to play it out. We're going to riff and go back and forth on a scenario of me trying to close him on a thing, and he's going to.
Oh, I'm excited for that.
Yeah. It's going to be it's role play. That's what I was looking for. Role play. It's going to be fun.
See, you
and he does it in a way too, you know, in this standing your ground and being strong, but in a way that's not real. You know, you don't look like an a-hole, right? He shows a way to have this as I'll say like a polite conversation of positioning and control, where this is how you can have that conversation, stand your ground and be strong without being a pushover and without coming off, you know, as someone who's just a total jerk.
Yeah. And the way he does that, I've seen. So on his YouTube channel, side note, he's got almost 1 million subscribers. Chris Doe, D-O. So if you just Google or just go to YouTube and you'll find his channel. One of the great videos I saw of him was role playing a sales call. And to your point, Todd, what he does is he's not an a-hole. And what he does is he's so calm, cool, and collected in this role play as the service provider to a potential client in the role play. He's simply asking questions. And he says the longer and the more often you can ask questions over and over and over again that bring the call to its natural conclusion, the better. And he shows that. It's just like, so what would it feel like if we were to do this? Or really at the end of the day, what would you say is? And all these really strategic questions. It's not about selling. It's a discovery call, which is great sales, to figure out how I might be able to possibly help solve your problem in a win-win situation.
To refer to as consultative selling.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it? Yeah.
And that's really you're acting more like a consultant trying to help someone solve their issue versus trying to put a product in their hand.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it changes the conversation.
Yeah, that was actually part of my riff this morning on Instagram of stop pitching, start connecting is about like, how do you do that discovery and include the line, I got to find out where this originated from, but prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. Right. And so if you start going and shoving your product in people's faces before you've diagnosed their problem to understand what it is they need, that's malpractice, man.
How can I help you solve something versus I want to give you something to purchase?
Yeah.
Well, it's like trying to sell someone, just hard selling.
Yeah.
Jake, you did this, right? You went to do solar. Well, you walked around and did solar, right? And I learned that needs for that it's a whole different ball game. And I think now with PodMax and the 4 C's, that's solving something for someone that wants to be a podcast guest, right? They don't know how to go about it. They don't know how to get started. They don't know what to say when they're, and how many people have we had that it's been their first time on a podcast and they feel so much more confident versus if they just connected with somebody and tried to do it on their own.
Yep. And that it's that clarity that gives confidence, right?
There you go.
Absolutely.
What was this comment, Todd, you wrote here? How do we turn all the it's going back to the book conversation about repurposing.
Yeah. So what Eric's feeling of offense towards Seinfeld and Tim Ferriss, only two of the greatest minds of our lifetime. But now what they've done, right, is that they've riffed for years. And they've captured it. Seinfeld is actually capturing his in a notebook on his desk, which is not the same type of riffing that Tim Ferriss does in his podcast. But what we're doing here, and I think this is when you're able to riff on your expertise, it also, you get to that point where you suck so little that you're actually pretty good. And now that you start riffing a lot after you're pretty good, you have a collection of valuable edutainment content that can be put out. And so think about like, at every PodMax, how many episodes are recorded in one day?
50.
50. At least 50 to 70.
Yeah.
And we are and it's a community of really like-minded entrepreneurs. We all are, of the growth mindset, abundance, love and kindness, and unity and direction, and all that kind of stuff, and bringing value to the world. And so every month or so, when we do a PodMax, we're collecting 50 to 70 entrepreneurial stories about this kind of thing. And so how do we turn our PodMax Day into a featured book of entrepreneurial stories?
Wow. Done.
Boom. Mind blown. So
and now
PodMax
people
9.
can say, man, these guys like
one.
Seinfeld,
Volume
Tim
one.
Ferriss, and Eric
Volume
Cabral
three. Yeah.
are just building these books.
Shut the front door.
Why can't we do that? Why aren't we doing that? We will be doing that. It's funny because we're in like hyper growth mode where we're visualizing our next 12-month plan. And it is a much bigger picture that doesn't end with the one-day PodMax event. And there are little pieces like you just said. Now, granted, we didn't hook that one in, but we did hook other things like that in. But now, thank you, Todd. Good. We'll,
That's what I'm here for.
Well, ask
and that's what comes from riffing. Right? That idea just came from a riff. So let's say this does play out. If you're interested in pre-ordering the PodMax book, leave your comment here so we can get some of this live crowdsourced market research, right?
You know what what's powerful about that, Todd, is prior to the event, we can tell people, hey, you're going to walk away with a book from the event and you will be an excerpt. Remember that book that it's somewhere back here on the shelf
a lot
where
of people do that.
Yeah, Josh McCallum
people
was
write chapters
he's one of 29 stories that are in this book. Boom.
That's
exactly.
So you're
even better.
Go ahead, Lisa.
No, what about the keynotes into a book?
All of it.
Oh yeah. See, look at this book. So this one is a collection, like we said, and look at all the people that are in this book.
So one
that's a
person
PodMax
spearheads this marketing idea where they collect a handful of entrepreneurs who want a label of best-selling author, and then they contribute a chapter in their expert voice to this collection of a book, and then the originator puts it out, packages it, and then puts it on Amazon, and then does certain things to get it to bestseller status. And lo and behold, via your contribution, you are bestseller. But that's not necessarily that's not the end game that we're saying, but
that's a good
idea.
But we have it. We've done the heavy lifting, right? I think that's something that we're starting to unravel in all of our conversations is we're doing a lot of heavy lifting that could eat with, a small hinge can swing a big door on a lot of these things. And I think, that could be one of them, but, and it just shows this idea just came about now. Right. And so it's the idea that riffing can turn into something. It gets your juices flowing. And I've got this quote from Josh Corporal is the one who said it to me. I don't know if he came up with it or not, but it's that the work begets the work, right? And so if you're not clear on your destination as a final destination, but directionally where you think you want to go, start riffing, get the juices flowing, work it out, and then it might, that's where you can get your clarity by doing the work.
The main thing that I did in that exact regard, and then we'll riff it over to Jake, because I know you're here. On that one note, Todd, a few years ago when I began my podcast, The Hidden Entrepreneur Show, I literally had no idea. Thank you, Eric. I had no idea where that was going to go. None. But I knew in my heart, I was like, you know what? I'm probably going to be decent at this, and I'm just going to look for the opportunities. I just want to establish myself in this industry, and we'll see what happens. That was it.
Yeah. What you got, young Jake?
Now we're so far removed from the topic that it's
Thanks, Josh.
I'll circle it back.
All I've done is completely ruined the riff at this point. But
go ahead.
I was gonna say the back of that book literally looks like a PodMax Zoom call. All you have to do is take
take the
screenshot and throw it up on the cover. But
Hello.
Powerful, Jacob.
Resume your riff now that it's completely been thrown off track. Let's land this plane and bring it back.
I want to go back to Seinfeld. Oh crap, we are here. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. Really quick though.
What happens when you riff? It's like time traveling.
Holy smokes. So what's great about Seinfeld is he's the king of riffing and iterating stuff, because if you think about it, his book, right? Isn't it called Is This Anything?
Correct.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So you could see the germ of the idea was just like, is this anything? And then like he just put it all together, right? It started from like, what is this? And then the same thing with this freaking show. It's a show about nothing.
Yep.
It's literally and what was so cool and meta about those episodes where they were pitching it to NBC,
Oh, yeah.
showing us what and how it all came to be and how ludicrous it sounded, that it was like, it's a show about nothing. And then all of a sudden it became something, the best, probably debatably the biggest freaking show of all time. But yeah, that's just funny. But anyway, like you all have been saying, and I do love that term, let's land this bird. And we'll close it with Podmax. We'll Sting to play us out. We're going to talk about, I'm in a silly mood today. Sorry, Lisa.
Great.
So we're going to really just drive home the fact that you need to be at Podmax December 4th, because if you haven't already figured it out, it is a unique experience for everyone involved. And we just continue to bring love and value to the community. It's growing every single time we do it. And we're just honored that people trust in us to pilot the ship and the plane and, to come on the all right, so we're flying at 30,000 feet, and if you look over to your left window, we see Chris Doe about to give a presentation. So it's pretty cool.
Very impressive pilot impression. Can't go on.
And everyone in the cabin is there enjoying themselves with drinks and their company and the people next to them and sharing, whatever snacks are available. But yeah, it's going to be a ton of fun. December 4th. Join us. I beg you, pretty much, because if you miss it, seats are limited, aren't they? I mean,
well, yes.
The cabin can only fit so many people.
Yeah.
And also, let me explain to you really quick why you might benefit from something like Podmax. No matter where you're at in your business, whether you're just starting out with shows, maybe you've been on a few, maybe you've been on none. This is a safe way to come out of obscurity. You probably know that podcasts are a way to boost everything: your credibility, your confidence, your story, your message, your sales and marketing, right? Podcasts. So this is a safe way because you're not on your own trying to identify shows to pitch and then pitching, hoping that they say yes, then scheduling it. You sign up for Podmax, we get you immediately on 3 shows. And I say it's a safe way to come out of obscurity because it's going to shine the light on you in a very supportive, nurturing way. No matter where you are, if you've never done it or you've done it a few times or you've done it a lot, we help you further really tweak and identify and communicate that message. So help yourself come out of obscurity and go alongside the shows that you're going to be on, utilize their audience to grow your business.
Awesome.
So Jake, we're going to need to clip that out to use for a Podmax ad, actually.
There you go. He just did it. If he hadn't cut that promo for you yet, Todd, that's it.
Yeah,
right
exactly. There's the riff.
Thank you.
Can I pull the curtain back a little bit?
Sure.
We're all still trying to, as always, we're still trying to discover what the main takeaways of Podmax is and how to talk about it and what problems we're solving. That little blurb that I literally just riffed on, I've never said out loud before, but I thought about it recently because I'm like, okay, what's another problem we're solving? Because we continue to identify different sets of avatar that are showing up and getting benefit from it. So one of the recent ones we discovered was a very high level CEO in an 8-figure company who has done great in getting his company to that level, but he has felt like the unsung hero. So that is an avatar that there's a benefit for. You are coming yourself out of obscurity, right? And in a safe environment because we hold your hand and we help you through it. Yeah. That was the riff.
Perfect.
It was
perfect.
You're
it's good stuff, man. We're gonna have to chop that up, man. Yeah. You should think about doing this for a living, Josh. So, with
do you have any experience in acting or improv or anything?
But yeah, I just want to thank Todd from Tresnick Media, who's always perfect and
Thank you very
awesome for
much.
us
Happy
and
to be
for the
here.
show. Thank you, Lisa Candela Holbert,
I think
for being
Todd's
on the
now
show.
like, I'm sorry, I think Todd's now like our Chris Elliott, or who's the reference that, you just keep coming back, right? Letterman.
Hey,
and
I'm a
Elliott.
recurring character here.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get
Yeah.
at.
He needs no introduction.
Oh,
Yeah.
good show. by
Good
the
show.
way.
Yeah, I
it
need to
really
catch
is.
up. But that is it for now. Please like, subscribe, and share this show with all your friends and family. Truly, 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 especially if we added some value in your life today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back here Wednesday at 11 each and every, even on Thanksgiving Wednesday, pre-Thanksgiving. We're going to be here for you, and each and every one of us are looking forward to continuing the journey with you. Talk to you and see you soon.